everyone, welcome to another episode of Jumpstart Your Creativity with Justine. Today we're going to be creating this fun Christmas card, and I used a bunch of my favorite basic techniques to create this card and kind of threw it all into one, so I thought let's get started right away. I'm going to be using the Christmas background stamp from My Favorite Things that came out this new release, and I love it because it has a whole bunch of really fun fine print Christmas sayings all over it. I'm going to ink it up completely with Versamark ink so that I can do some heat embossing. Now that I've inked it up, I'm going to grab a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor distress cardstock, and I am going to use my embossing bag here just to wipe it down and get rid of any static that might be attached to my paper so that when I stamp, no stray embossing powder is going to get all over the place. So I'm laying it on top of my background here, and I'm using a fairly heavy hand to push this down onto my stamp in order to get a nice clear impression. Now at this point I can't see a whole lot of what's on my cardstock because I just stamped in clear on white, but I'm going to add some super fine detail white embossing powder to my cardstock background, and I have it stored in this Tupperware container just so that everything falls back in easily. I'm using a scoop from Nuvo here, and I am just adding that powder onto my card so that it goes over the entire background. When I'm finished, I always give the back of the cardstock a little flick to get rid of any embossing powder, and then I'm going to go ahead and go in with my heat tool until everything appears shiny on the cardstock. If you're seeing any dull areas, that means that it hasn't heat embossed yet and it's still in powder form. Setting my cardstock off to the side here, I'm grabbing a couple of colors of Distress Oxide inks. I am using some Tumbled Glass, some Stormy Sky, and some Salty Ocean here, and I'm just putting it onto my glass mat directly. If you don't have a glass mat, you can put it onto a piece of acetate or the plastic that your stamp set comes on, anything that's a non-porous surface. I'm going to grab my Distress sprayer and just add some water to the watercolors, and you'll see how they all flick out. I'm going to go ahead now and just drag my background through it and press my background into it so that it gets into the areas that are embossed, and I just keep going until I'm completely satisfied. This is kind of like my fake it till you make it watercolor, and I do want it to kind of have a distressed look, so I want to have little white spaces there when it's all finished. So now I am all finished my background. You can take a look at what it looks like as soon as it's dry, and you can see that writing that comes right through it, which is super fun. I'm going to go on to my stamping and coloring now. I am using this stamp set here from the Pure Innocence line called Holiday Cheer, and she's just an adorable little stamp set here, and I wanted to add some tones that would go with the background, but also some red for her jacket. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this in some My Favorite Things Extreme Black ink. That's a Copic friendly ink, and I'm going to get Copic Coloring just in a moment. Now over on the side, you should be able to see all the colors that I'm going to be using while I'm Copic coloring. I'm not using any particular strategy. I'm going down with my lightest color, coming in with my darkest where I want to cast any sort of shadows that might be on her, and then I'm going and blending out with my medium color and topping it all off with my light color once again, and I'm doing that for each one of the colors on my image. Also, just keep in mind if you're ever coloring black that you should use shades of gray like I'm doing right now versus using the black Copic marker, which I've never actually used because it's too dark. So black also doesn't just have one color, it has shades depending on how the light hits it, and the more detail you put in, the better the image is going to look. Now this is quite the focal image on my card, but it does also have the background, so I'm not putting in a super ton of time with coloring this. I am doing my basic shading, and that's it. I wanted to tie in some of the colors of the background as well, so I decided to color the gift bags in two different shades of blue in order to incorporate that blue from the background into the design so that it didn't look misplaced. Also, don't forget to add your gray areas to the white. Remember, white also has its own shades, and that's really important as well to make it a little bit more realistic and lifelike. So once I'm all finished doing my coloring here, I'm going to go ahead and grab the coordinating die and just go ahead and die cut this image. And I'm going in now and just creating my card base, which is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 standard thickness 110-pound cardstock. I decided that the background was a little too much. I always like a bit of a frame of white around my cards, so I decided to go in with this
corner die here, this nesting die, and that is 8 sides. And I thought I'd add some stitching and a little bit of the background. And what's fun about doing this is that if you've ever stamped where it's not straight, you can go ahead and straighten it out by using a die cut like this. Or if there's areas of the background that you prefer over others, you can arrange your die accordingly. You'll notice I didn't put it directly in the middle because I wanted to keep some of that white grunge look. So I did put it towards the bottom where I'd get a little bit more white in there. So I went ahead now and just added that to my card base, and you can see just how much of a difference that makes versus just having that over the whole background. Just gives it a little bit more of a cleaner appearance in my opinion. And I also have just some added interest by adding those extra geometric sides to my shape. I'm going to add my little shopping lady here as well, but before I do that I have to go ahead and stamp a sentiment and then do a little bit of die cutting of some snowflakes. So I'm grabbing the Christmas Wishes stamp set. This comes in one of the stamp sets that was released this month called Trio of Trees, and I really like the font on it as well as the thickness, so I thought it would work really nicely with this card. I also wanted something that would fit with my fishtail banner die because I really love to die cut my sentiments using that. I also really appreciate the fact that My Favorite Things creates their sentiments with a lot of their sentiment frames in mind. So whether it's speech bubbles or this fishtail die, majority of the sentiments that they create fit inside the different shapes and the varying shapes of it. So it's just really nice little touch that is added to the products. So now going on and adding some 3D foam tape to the back of my elements here, I'm just going to go ahead and put the card all together now. And I'm adding a couple of the die cuts that I die cut from one of the die sets that was released this month. That's a super fun one called Filled with Joy. That comes with a joy sentiment as well as an ornament, put together Frosty the Snowman type thing, as well as a snowflake. So I just borrowed the snowflake and die cut those 3 times to add some interest to my card. You could also use sequins or Nuvo drops or whatever you like to add your interest to your background, or leave it as is since the background's already quite busy in itself. I really love how the presents sort of tie in the colored image, and then adding the snowflakes just makes it look so Christmassy, and adding that little Christmas Wishes banner here off to the side in black just adds that whole color dynamic of tying in the boots and the leggings and the mitts as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in November for another video, and in the meantime, if you'd like to subscribe to the My Favorite Things channel or check out some more videos, there they are available to you. Bye for now.